Poor girl shared her burger. He turned out to be a millionaire looking for love. The rain hadn't let up since dusk, and Philadelphia's streets shimmered beneath the blurry orange glow of old streetlights. It was the kind of night where everything felt colder than it should, even with a coat. Jasmine Carter, 28, pulled her threadbare hoodie tighter as she stepped out of the modest cafe on Walnut Street. The closed sign flipped with a tired creak behind her, marking the end of another long shift. Her fingers ached from hours of wiping tables and pouring coffee for people who barely looked her in the eye. She had nothing but half a cheeseburger wrapped in greasy foil, left over from her short lunch break, now lukewarm and a little soggy. She hadn't eaten it then because her stomach had twisted too tightly from exhaustion and worry. Rent was due, her younger sister's medical bills were piling up, and the landlord had left another passive-aggressive note on her door that morning. Jasmine shoved her hands into her coat pockets and turned toward the bus stop. But as she passed the corner, she caught sight of someone sitting alone beneath a flickering street lamp. A man, hunched forward, soaking wet, his coat hanging from his frame like it had given up, trying to keep him warm. His face was shadowed by a hood, but she could see enough: gaunt cheeks, trembling hands, shoes that had clearly seen better years. She should have kept walking. She usually did, not because she didn't care, but because caring too much when you had nothing left to give could break a person. But tonight, something stopped her. She stepped closer, cautious but firm. "Hey, you okay?" The man turned his head slightly. Under the dim light, his eyes looked glassy, unfocused. He didn't speak at first, only nodded once, barely. "You hungry?" she asked, holding up the foil-wrapped burger like a peace offering. He blinked, startled. "No," he said hoarsely, shaking his head. "You should keep it." "I'm not asking," Jasmine said, her voice firm in the way that sounded like a scolding but felt more like a hug. "Just eat it, okay? It's not much, but it's warm." He hesitated, then slowly reached out. Their fingers brushed briefly as he took it, and she felt a strange jolt, like passing something deeper than food between them. "Thank you," he murmured, barely louder than the rain. She nodded. "You're welcome." Jasmine lingered a moment longer, then pointed back toward the cafe. "There's still heat inside. You want to come warm up a bit?" The man looked down at the burger in his lap, then back up at her with tired, guarded eyes. "I shouldn't." "Why? You think I'm gonna kick you out?" He shook his head. "You've already done enough." She didn't push. "All right then. Be safe." As she walked away, she glanced back once. He was still there, just a figure hunched under the streetlight, now with a burger in hand and a strange sadness in his eyes. She didn't know why it stuck with her. Maybe because he looked like someone who had once stood tall, and had somehow forgotten how. That night, in her tiny apartment above a laundromat that reeked of bleach and broken machines, Jasmine lay awake, staring at the ceiling. She had given away the only food she had left, but her heart felt strangely full. 3 days later, the rain had passed, but the city remained soaked in the chill it left behind. The wind in Philadelphia whispered through alleyways and tugged at the edges of coats, reminding everyone that winter still had something to say. Jasmine stood behind the register of the cafe, halfway through restocking the sugar packets, when she heard the bell over the front door jingle softly. Without looking up, she called, "We don't open for another 30. But she stopped mid-sentence. It was him, the man from the bus stop. Only this time, he looked different. His coat was clean, sleek even, dark navy wool that actually fit his shoulders. His hair was combed, still damp from a fresh shower. And though he moved slowly, there was a quiet confidence in his steps now. The exhaustion in his eyes remained, but something behind them had cleared, like a fog lifting after a storm. Jasmine blinked, stunned. "You again?" He offered a faint smile. "Guilty. You clean up real nice," she said, eyes narrowing slightly as she leaned on the counter. "You're not homeless, are you?" "No," he replied simply. There was no shame in his tone, no explanation either, just honesty, and somehow that unnerved her more than a lie would have. "So, what were you doing out there that night?" she asked. "Sitting in the rain like a ghost?" He paused, looked down at the scuffed wooden floor, then back at her. "Hiding." "Hiding from what?" He shrugged lightly. Everything. Jasmine studied him. She'd seen enough broken people to recognize the weight behind his eyes. But she'd also seen enough liars to spot the ones who wore masks. He wasn't lying. He was holding something back. But not to manipulate. More like to protect. "You're not from around here, are you?" He smirked. "Used to be." There was a silence between them then, heavy but not uncomfortable. He shifted his weight, then reached into his coat pocket. "I came to pay for the burger, and maybe for your time, if you've got a few minutes." As he handed her a $5 bill, Jasmine caught a glimpse beneath his sleeve. Just a flash, but enough to see a watch. Not just any watch. A Monaco Tag Heuer, silver with a blue face, the kind of thing that cost more than what she made in a month. She said nothing. Just took the money, rang up a bottle of water he hadn't asked for, and slid it across the counter. "On the house," she said. "You already paid more than you know." He accepted it with a quiet nod. That night, Jasmine went to DeMarco's diner across the street for fries and a refillable cup of burnt coffee she couldn't afford. As she stirred creamer into the cup, an older woman with a loud scarf and louder opinions slid onto the stool beside her. "You work over at Josie's Cafe, right?" the woman asked. Jasmine nodded. "Yeah. You ever hear of Eli Mercer?" The name meant nothing. Jasmine shook her head. "Used to be in the fashion business," the woman continued. "Had a whole brand. Billboards, suits, ads in GQ. Then poof. Gone. Rumor is he had some kind of breakdown. Just vanished." The diner's neon lights buzzed above them. Jasmine stirred her coffee, slower this time. "What kind of fashion?" "Menswear. Fancy stuff. Like, I own 5 condos fancy." The woman laughed, tapped her spoon on the counter and kept rambling. But Jasmine wasn't listening anymore. She was thinking about the man who had taken a burger with shaking hands. The way he looked at her, like he hadn't been seen in years. The silence that surrounded him like a second coat. Conga, Eli Mercer, Conga, Conga. So he really was someone. Conga, not just someone who was broken. Conga, 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 Mana Mariferway, Conga, Conga, Mariferway from the world. Someone who had sat under a streetlight eating a stranger's burger just to feel like a person again. Jasmine looked down into her coffee, the reflection of her face rippling with the steam. She whispered to herself, "What are you hiding, Eli?" It was a quiet Thursday afternoon. The cafe buzzed with its usual rhythm, espresso hissing, chatter low, and the hum of indie music playing from a speaker tucked near the back. Jasmine was wiping down tables near the window, lost in her own thoughts, when she heard the front door creak open. She didn't have to look up. She felt it. The shift in the room, the air tightening. The footsteps were too precise, too expensive. She glanced up just as a woman in a beige trench coat and heels that had no business surviving. Philly's sidewalk stepped inside like she owned the place. "Excuse me," the woman said crisply, walking straight toward Jasmine with a smile that never reached her eyes. "You're Jasmine Carter, right?" Jasmine froze, hands still gripping the edge of the table. "Yes?" The woman extended a gloved hand but didn't wait for Jasmine to take it. "Vanessa Crane. I used to be Eli's business partner." The name hit like a splash of cold water. Jasmine's eyes narrowed. "Okay. And?" Vanessa's smile sharpened. "And I'm here to do you a favor." "I didn't ask for one." "No, but sometimes favors come whether you want them or not." She placed a sleek manila envelope on the table between them. Jasmine didn't touch it. "Let me guess," Jasmine said dryly. "You want to warn me about Eli. Tell me he's damaged. Or rich. Or dangerous. Or all three." Vanessa gave a soft, condescending chuckle. "Darling, I'm not here to insult you. I'm here to remind you of reality. You're a cafe waitress with a tragic backstory. He's a brand. A legacy. He may be playing small-town mystery man, but I assure you, he won't stay away from the spotlight forever. And when he returns, you'll be in the way." Jasmine folded her arms. "Maybe he's not planning to return." Vanessa leaned in. "Everyone returns eventually, especially when they're born for something bigger." She looked Jasmine up and down, her tone now tinged with icy precision. "You don't fit into his world, Jasmine, and deep down, I think you know that." Jasmine's jaw clenched. "You done?" Vanessa tilted her head. "I could be. Or I could release what's in that envelope. Contracts, old press, a few mistakes Eli would prefer stay buried. If you care about him, really care, you won't let him burn everything down for a girl who can't afford new boots." Jasmine didn't flinch, but her hands trembled under the table. "I'm not afraid of you," she said, voice low. "No," Vanessa said, picking up the envelope and tucking it back into her bag. "But you're afraid of being a burden, of dragging him down. That's worse." And with that, she turned on her heels and left, the sound of her designer shoes fading into the sidewalk rain outside. Jasmine stood there long after she was gone. That evening she didn't meet Eli. She turned off her phone. She walked home slowly like her feet had forgotten how to move. Marahoyer. In her apartment, she lay on her bed in her uniform, staring at the ceiling until the walls felt like they were closing in. Vanessa's words played on repeat, each one more poisonous than the last. What if she's right? What if she was just a distraction? A pause in a life Eli was destined to resume? She didn't cry. Not yet. But something inside her cracked, silent and deep, the kind of break that didn't bleed but hurt all the same. Across town, Eli waited by the bench in the park, hands in his coat pockets, watching the lamplight stretch shadows across the sidewalk. He checked his phone. Then again. And again. No messages, no Jasmine. Only silence. And in that silence, something twisted in his chest, something he hadn't felt in years. Fear. How are you feeling about the story so far? I'd really love to know what you think. Did it touch your heart or maybe remind you of something from your own life? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And while you're at it, tell me, where in the world are you listening from? I'd love to see how far this story travels. The next morning, Jasmine arrived at the cafe before sunrise, hoping to lose herself in routine. Grind the beans, refill the syrups, wipe the same countertops she'd cleaned 1,000 times. But even the hiss of espresso couldn't drown out Vanessa's voice in her head. "He's not himself when he's with you. You'll ruin his legacy. You don't belong in his world." Jasmine didn't cry. Not in front of anyone, but behind the walk-in cooler door, with the metal shelves and the hum of refrigeration, she let herself breathe in the cold, long enough to numb the tightness in her chest. Eli didn't text that day. Pulled, he didn't call. Pulled, he showed up, but passical. Just after lunch, she stepped outside on her break and found him standing on the curb, hands deep in his coat pockets, eyes searching, uncertain. "I went to the park," he said softly. "I waited." Jasmine nodded once. "I know." He took a tentative step forward. "Something happened, didn't it?" She hesitated, then sighed. "Vanessa came to see me." His jaw clenched, the name hitting like a slap. What?" "She said I'm a distraction, that I'll ruin you, that the world you walked away from is still waiting to pull you back, and I'm in the way." Eli didn't blink. "She shouldn't have come near you." Jasmine folded her arms. "She said she'd bury you if I didn't walk away." "I don't care what she threatens. I left that world for a reason, Jasmine, and I'm not going back. Not if it means giving up the only real thing I've found." She met his gaze and her voice cracked. "But maybe she's not wrong. I work 2 jobs. I don't have health insurance. I'm barely surviving. And you. I'm tired of hearing about what I have," Eli snapped gently, stepping closer, "because none of it matters without someone to share it with." Her lips parted, a reply rising, but he cut her off with something quieter. "I've scheduled an interview," he said. "Tomorrow. Local morning news. They want me to talk about the youth art program I'm funding in West Philly." Jasmine tilted her head. "So?" He smiled faintly. So I'm going to tell the truth. Jasmine didn't fully understand until the next morning. She sat in her apartment, the TV on low volume, wrapped in a blanket, tea untouched on the table. The news anchor introduced him. This morning, we have Eli Mercer, the reclusive fashion visionary and philanthropist, joining us to talk about a program close to his heart. Eli looked calm, grounded. He wore no suit, just a navy sweater and jeans. His eyes scanned the camera with quiet intent. Anton, and then the anchor leaned in with a smile that had sharp edges. Anton, we've also heard some rumors lately about a special someone in your life. Can you confirm or deny? Eli didn't flinch. I can confirm, he said simply. Her name is Jasmine Carter. The studio grew still. He went on. I met her on a night when I had nothing to give. No name, no image, no explanation. And she gave me the last of her food, not because she knew who I was, but because she saw someone in need. He looked straight into the lens, and Jasmine's heart stopped. She didn't want my money. She didn't even ask my name. She just cared. And that night, I stopped feeling invisible. His voice softened. She is the kindest, strongest person I know, and I won't let anyone shame her for being exactly who she is. There was a pause. The anchor blinked, unsure how to follow it. But the city didn't need more. The clip exploded online. They said her name. She gave him her last burger? Real love still exists. Protect this man and that girl at all costs. Comments poured in like confetti. Philadelphia began to whisper a new tune, not of scandal, but of admiration. Back in her apartment, Jasmine watched with wide eyes and trembling hands. She didn't weep, not at first, but when Eli said her name again and she saw the way his eyes softened when he did, the tears came. Quiet, disbelieving tears, not of shame or fear, but of something far more dangerous. Hope. The day after the interview, Philadelphia felt softer, as if the city itself had exhaled. Snow fell again, delicate and slow, not the kind that snarled traffic or soaked boots, but the kind that muted the noise, made things still. Jasmine didn't rush to find Eli. She didn't text. She didn't call. She needed to feel it first, that this wasn't just a gesture or a moment or a performance for cameras. She needed to believe it was real. But by late afternoon, she found herself walking toward the little independent bookstore near Rittenhouse Square. Eli had once told her it was the only place in the city where he could breathe. And sure enough, there he was, standing in the poetry section, a copy of Pablo Neruda in his hand, turning pages like they held answers. When he looked up and saw her, his body stilled. No grin, no greeting. Just a stillness filled with everything unsaid. Jasmine crossed the wooden floor slowly, the snow melting on her coat, her boots squeaking faintly. She stopped inches from him. "Why would you do that?" she asked, voice soft but direct. Eli looked at her for a long moment, then shut the book gently. "Because I love you." No ceremony, no grand speech. Just the truth, like a light in the dark. I love how you see people. I love that you gave me half a burger when you had nothing. I love that you challenge me without trying, and how you make me want to stay in a city I once tried to disappear in. Jasmine's breath hitched. You didn't have to say it on TV. I did, he said, because they needed to hear it, and more importantly, you did. She blinked hard, her voice a whisper. I'm scared. I know. I don't know if I fit in your world. Then we'll make our own. There was silence between them again, the kind that didn't feel empty. Eli stepped forward, slowly, carefully, as if afraid she might vanish again. He extended a hand. Come with me, he said. She'd looked at it, then at him. Then placed her hand in his. They didn't call it dating. Not right away. There were no rooftop dinners or weekend getaways. No Instagram moments or lavish surprises. Instead, there was coffee after her shift, sometimes in silence, sometimes with laughter. There were walks through old neighborhoods, cobblestones underfoot, dogs barking from windowsills. There were shared sandwiches in parks, laughter over spilled mustard, hands brushing accidentally, then not so accidentally. Eli stopped trying to impress. He wore plain sweaters and scuffed boots, and he asked more than he answered. And Jasmine, despite herself, began to look forward to every moment he showed up, and stayed. One Saturday afternoon, they wandered through a flea market tucked between two alleyways. Jasmine paused at a booth selling hand-stitched tote bags made from recycled denim. Her fingers trailed over the seams of a bag with a faded floral strap. "I used to make stuff like this," she said, almost to herself. Eli turned to her. "Do you still design?" She shook her head. "Not in a long time. Life got in the way." "You should." Jasmine gave a sad smile. "What for?" "For yourself," he said. "For the girl who still dreams, even if she doesn't say it out loud." She laughed, brushing off his words, but not entirely. Later that week, he handed her a blank sketchbook. No note, no explanation, just a quiet gift, full of untouched pages and permission. She ran her fingers over the cover for minutes before opening it. And that night, alone in her apartment, she drew again. Shaky lines at first, then stronger. It wasn't about talent. It was about remembering who she used to be, and daring to believe she could still be her. The wind was sharp that evening, slicing through the city like a whispered warning that winter still lingered in the bones of things. Jasmine and Eli walked in silence through an older part of Philadelphia, where houses leaned slightly from age, and the sidewalks curved around memories. They didn't talk much that night. They didn't need to. Their steps moved in rhythm, their shoulders brushing now and then beneath bundled coats, as if their bodies knew how to speak before their mouths did. They found a bench in a small park tucked behind a historic church, half hidden beneath a canopy of bare trees. The sky above was bruised with shades of violet and steel. Jasmine sat first, kicking at the gravel beneath her boots. Eli followed, sitting close, but not too close. After a moment, she asked quietly, "Do you ever miss it?" He glanced sideways. "What?" "The old life, the attention, the empire." Eli leaned back, his breath forming clouds. "Sometimes. Not the noise, but the clarity. When you're building something, you know your direction, even if it's for the wrong reasons." He paused. "There was one collection," he added, voice quieter now. "My favorite. Clean lines, natural fabrics, subtle, thoughtful. It flopped." Jasmine turned toward him. "The critics hated it," he said. "Sales tanked. People called it a vanity project. Said it lacked edge." He gave a short laugh, but there was no humor in it. "After that, I handed over the company, told myself I was done." Jasmine frowned. "Because of one failure?" He shrugged. "It was more than failure. It was vulnerability. I made something that meant something to me, and it was rejected." Loudly, he looked out across the empty park. "It taught me that success doesn't always reward authenticity." She was quiet for a while. Then she said, "I dated someone once. Thought he was good, helped me take care of my sister, made me feel safe." Her voice faltered. "Then one day he said I was too much, that my life, my grief, my bills, my chaos, was too heavy for him." Eli's jaw tightened. "I think I stopped trusting after that," she continued, looking down at her hands. "Not just people, myself." He didn't speak right away. Then, with great gentleness, he said, "He was wrong." She looked up, surprised. "You're not too much," Eli said. "You're enough. You're strong in the ways that count, the kind that doesn't fade when things get hard." Something in her face cracked, not visibly, but inward, where emotion lived. The air between them changed. Thicker now, charged. She looked away first. "It's late. I should get home." He nodded, standing with her. "I'll walk you." They didn't speak again until they reached her stoop. Jasmine fumbled for her keys, her fingers slower than usual. When she turned to him, she hesitated. "I'm scared," she admitted. "I know. I want this," she whispered. "But I don't know if I know how." Eli didn't move closer. He didn't reach for her hand. He just stood still and said, "Then I'll wait." Her eyes shimmered, and she turned away before he could see too much. Inside her apartment, the sketchbook lay on her table, still open to the drawing she'd started the night before, A rough outline of a long coat, soft shoulders, clean lines, honest fabric. She stared at it like it was a version of herself she hadn't seen in years. She touched the page and whispered to the empty room, "Don't leave." They didn't speak for 3 days. Not because of anger, not because of distance, but because some silences aren't empty. They're heavy. They hold unspoken questions, untested fears, and all the words someone might not be ready to hear. Jasmine buried herself in work. She picked up an extra shift at the cafe, stayed later, wiped the same table 3 times just to keep her hands moving. At home, she stared at the sketchbook on her nightstand but didn't open it. The world hadn't changed. But something inside her had. She didn't know what scared her more, that Eli meant every word, or that she might actually want to believe him. Eli, meanwhile, sat in his apartment staring at a couch he never used, a fireplace he never lit, and a city that still didn't feel like home unless Jasmine was in it. He had waded through storms, walked away from fortune, and disappeared from headlines. But nothing had prepared him for the quiet ache of waiting for someone else's fear to fade. He didn't text her, didn't show up. He just waited, until the rumors began. Not the old whispers about him being a recluse, or the gossip about his empire. This was different. It was about Jasmine. "That's the girl from the interview, right? She must have played him like a violin. From waitress to girlfriend of a millionaire? Must be nice." It started online. Then it crept into the cafe. Customers dropped comments with syrupy smiles. "You're glowing lately, Jasmine. Is that new lipstick? Or just new tax brackets?" Her co-workers weren't much better. One slid a tabloid clipping across the counter. A photo of her walking next to Eli, hand in hand. The caption read, "Beauty and the Bank." Jasmine said nothing. She folded the clipping in half and tossed it in the trash. But at home, alone, she stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror and whispered, "I can't live like this." That night, she called Eli. Her voice was low, shaken. "I think I need to disappear for a while." There was a pause. Then Eli said softly, "You're not the problem, Jasmine. They are. I walk down the street and I feel like a joke." "Then let's leave. Together. Anywhere. Name it." She closed her eyes. "I don't want you to give up your life for me." "I'm not giving anything up," he said. "I'm choosing you." But she couldn't hear it. Not over the volume of her own self-doubt, her own unworthiness that clawed louder than his love. She hung up. 2 days later, Eli sat stiffly in a studio chair beneath bright lights. He'd agreed to appear on a local TV segment to promote the youth design program he was funding. The host smiled politely, then leaned in, too interested, too rehearsed. "We've seen you out with a certain someone, Eli, a mystery woman. Would you care to tell us who she is?" Eli didn't hesitate. "Her name is Jasmine Carter." The host raised an eyebrow. "And who is she to you?" Eli smiled, genuine, steady. "She's the woman I love." The studio fell silent. "I met her when I had nothing. No image, no name. She gave me the last of her lunch. Not because of who I was, but because of who she is." He paused. "And I'm not ashamed of her. I'm proud of her." The clip aired live. Within hours, it was everywhere. She gave him a burger? This is the love story we need. Finally, real people, real love. And Jasmine saw it alone, in her apartment, wrapped in an old blanket, holding a mug of tea gone cold. Tears welled in her eyes, not because she was sad, but because he saw her still. Because maybe she wasn't invisible. Maybe she was loved. And for the first time, that thought didn't make her run, it made her reach. The next morning, snow fell again. Light, slow, the kind that blanketed Philadelphia like a secret the sky was trying to keep. Jasmine didn't rush. She didn't plan. She just walked. Down streets she knew by heart, past shuttered windows and old brick walls. Past the pizza shop where she'd once loaned a friend $20 she couldn't spare, and past the mural she used to sketch beneath as a teenager when home felt too loud. She ended up outside the bookstore, the one Eli had once told her felt like a sanctuary. Golad. She knew he'd be there, Golad. He always went there when the world became too much. Inside, it was warm. The smell of old pages, ink, and dust floated through the air. Quiet jazz played from an old speaker in the corner. Jasmine walked slowly between the shelves until she found him. He was standing in front of the poetry section again. Emos, holding the same Neruda book. When he turned and saw her, he didn't smile right away. He just froze, like part of him had dared to hope, but hadn't let himself believe. Jasmine stepped closer, her boots leaving soft prints on the wood floor. She stopped a breath away and asked, "Why would you do that?" His voice was calm. "Because I love you." She shook her head, lips tight. "You could have said nothing. Let the rumors pass, let the cameras spin. But you didn't." Eli took a breath. "I've spent years hiding behind silence, Jasmine. Behind brands. Behind charm. But for once, I wanted the truth to be louder than the lie." She looked away. "I didn't ask for any of this. I know. I didn't want to be saved. I know. Then why do I feel like you saved me anyway?" That made him pause. Then softly, "Because you saved me first." She blinked hard. "I was disappearing when you found me," he continued. "Not just from the world. From myself. You reminded me what it means to care, to give, to be seen." She tried to hold herself still, to be unmoved. But the tremble in her hands betrayed her. He stepped forward. Just a little. Just enough. "Jasmine," he said, "I'm not perfect. I'm not stable. I'm not a rescue mission with $1,000,000 smile." She laughed once, bitterly. "Could have fooled me. But I'm here," he said, "for real. And I want to be with you. Not because you're a story or a cause or a chapter in my healing, but because you're the first person who looked at me and didn't flinch." She looked up, and this time she didn't look away. "I don't know how to live in your world," she whispered. "Then we build one together." Silence. Then, slowly, she reached out and placed her hand over his on the book. "I'm still scared. So am I. But I want to try." "Then that's enough," he said, voice cracking ever so slightly. "It always has been. Dot." They walked out of the bookstore hand in hand. The snow caught in her curls and in the folds of his coat. And for once, there were no cameras, no headlines, no whispers. Howie's. Just two people stepping forward. Howie's more, not into certainty, but into something braver. Dot. That night, Jasmine sat at her tiny kitchen table, the sketchbook open again. She drew late into the evening. Jackets with asymmetrical zippers, wool coats with hidden seams, long silhouettes that felt like confidence stitched into form. Eli sat across from her with a cup of tea and didn't say a word. Dowers. He just watched her come back to life, one line at a time. And when she finally looked up, her eyes tired but glowing, she asked, "Do you think I could do this again?" He smiled. "You already are." Morning snow blanketed the city in silence. The kind of snow that softened rooftops and erased yesterday's footprints. The kind that made you feel like the world was offering you a fresh page, if you were brave enough to write on it. Jasmine stood by the window of her apartment, watching the flakes fall like ash from a quieter sky, her hands curled around a chipped mug of coffee she hadn't touched. She didn't hear the knock at first. It came again, gentle but steady. When she opened the door, Eli stood there, wrapped in the same navy coat from that first day, snow clinging to his shoulders. He looked calm, but his eyes were sharp, like he had been rehearsing this moment all night and had decided to throw the script away. "Can we take a walk?" he asked softly. She hesitated, then nodded. Dot. They walked through Fittler's Square, where the snow coated the benches and dusted the branches like powdered sugar. Children laughed in the distance, building crooked snowmen, but the park itself was quiet, almost reverent. Eli stopped near the old stone fountain, frozen solid now, icicles hanging from its edges like glass teeth. "Hey, Compton!" He turned to her, His breath steamed in the air. "I need to tell you something," he said. Jasmine looked up at him, her expression unreadable. "I love you," he said simply. "Not the way people say it too soon. Not the way tabloids dress it up. I love the way you fight for people. I love how you gave me food when you had none. I love how you still draw even when the world tried to erase your dreams." She looked away. "You don't have to say that." "I want to," he replied, "because it's true." "I'm just surviving," she whispered. "You come from something bigger. You wear it even when you try not to. Then let me use it to build something that includes you." She shook her head. "You don't get it, Eli. I work until my back aches. I go to sleep afraid I won't make rent. I've lived my whole life with my stomach in knots. And you—" "I've had all the money in the world," he said firmly, "and none of it ever gave me what I feel standing next to you." Her lips trembled. "What happens when the world wants you back?" "They've already tried," he said, "but they don't get to choose me anymore." She took a step away from the fountain. "I can't be left behind. I've been left too many times. I'm not leaving. You say that now. I'll say it every day." But she was already pulling away. Her foot hit a patch of ice. She slipped. Her body twisted with a gasp, and then a dull thud as she landed hard on the snow-packed bricks. "Jasmine!" Eli dropped beside her. She winced, clutching her ankle. "It's okay, just a sprain. Let me help." She resisted, then gave in. He carried her, not like a hero, not like a man trying to prove anything, but like someone who simply refused to let her carry the pain alone. Back at her apartment, he helped her onto the couch, propped her foot up, and wrapped her ankle with a precision that felt both practiced and intimate. Then he brewed tea, sat beside her, said nothing. After a long while, Jasmine finally asked, "Why do you care so much?" Eli didn't hesitate. "Because you saw me. Not my name, not my money. You saw me." She looked away. "I don't know if I believe in happy endings." "Me neither," he said. "But I believe in starting over, and in choosing someone every day." A single tear slid down her cheek. "I want this," she whispered. "But if I let myself fall and lose it, I'll still be here." She looked at him, eyes shining with equal parts, hope and fear. Then slowly, she took his hand. "I wish I could believe that," she whispered. "You don't have to," Eli said gently. "Not yet, just stay." And Jasmine, for the first time in a long time, didn't run. She let herself lean into the quiet. Let herself believe, if only for a moment, that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't a dream she had to wake up from. 1 year later, Philadelphia had changed, but not in the way cities usually do. The skyline still pierced the clouds. The sidewalks still cracked in the same places. The cafe on Walnut Street still served burnt coffee and underwhelming pastries, but something beneath the surface had shifted. Jasmine Carter no longer rushed out of her apartment each morning with fear on her heels. She didn't flinch when people recognized her, didn't shrink under stares, didn't apologize for being seen. And Eli Mercer, once the man the fashion world couldn't stop talking about, had quietly become someone they no longer needed to talk about, because he had stopped performing, stopped chasing, stopped pretending. Once the man the fashy, once the man the fashy, once the man the fashy, once the man the fashy. They didn't host parties or walk red carpets. They got married in a tiny brick building between a secondhand bookstore and a bakery that always smelled like burnt sugar. There were 20 chairs, no photographers, and a string of paper lanterns that fluttered in the wind like paper prayers. Jasmine wore a dress she designed herself, simple, clean, hers. Eli wore the navy coat he'd met her in, stitched at the collar where she'd mended it the week before, thread the same color as her eyes. Their vows were whispered, not for show, not for social media, but for each other. "You found me when I didn't even know I was lost. You loved me before I believed I could be loved." When they kissed, the neighborhood kids across the street clapped and cheered like they were watching a fairy tale unfold. And maybe, in a way, they were. By spring, Jasmine was back in school, fashion design, part-time. She took the train twice a week, sat in the front row, filled notebooks with sketches and fabric swatches. She no longer drew to escape. Cassie. She drew to build. Eli turned the second bedroom in their apartment into a tiny studio. Thread spools lived beside paintbrushes, sketchbooks beside teacups. Sometimes Jasmine worked until 2 a.m., and Eli would bring her a blanket and sit beside her without a word. "You're reminding me why I ever dreamed," he told her once. "And you're teaching me how to believe again," she replied. But their love didn't stop at their front door. Together, they opened the Common Thread Center, a storefront turned sanctuary for kids who had never held a pencil that wasn't borrowed. They taught sewing, sketching, storytelling. The kids called them Miss J and Mr. E. Parents came too, not to ask, but to offer. Snacks, donated fabric, stories about when they were young and still believed in beautiful things. Jasmine taught technique. Eli taught belief. And together, they stitched something bigger than clothing. They stitched community. One snowy night, Jasmine sat by the window with a mug of cocoa. The city glowed beyond the glass, quiet and blinking. Like it, too, was remembering how far they had come. Draver. Eli joined her, his hand finding hers with ease. "You're quiet," he said. "I'm thinking," she replied, "about everything I almost missed." He turned toward her. "You didn't miss it. You just waited until you were ready." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "Do you think we'll ever forget what it was like before this?" Eli shook his head. "I hope not." Later that week, they walked down the street where it had all begun. Zoo. The lamppost was still there, flickering like it always had. The bench near the corner bus stop, the spot where Jasmine had offered half a burger to a stranger she didn't know, would one day hold her whole heart. They stopped under that light. Snow fell again. Soft, slow, forgiving. Eli looked at her, eyes full of quiet awe. "Amazing, isn't it?" he whispered. "How one act of kindness changed everything." Jasmine smiled. "Maybe it wasn't just the burger," she said. "Maybe it was the heart that held it." They stood there, hand in hand, their breath mixing in the cold. Behind them, their old footprints faded into the snow. Ahead of them, only hope, stitched not from perfection, but from choice. Two people, choosing each other, again and again, every single day. If this story moved you, reminded you that healing is real, or renewed your belief in second chances, we invite you to subscribe to Healing Stories. Here, we share real-life journeys of strength, love, and hope. Stories that speak straight to the soul. Thank you for being here. And always remember, no matter how far you fall, there's always a way back to the light. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below and let us know.